What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm going to be going over what I think the top 10 cards are from Sun and Moon Cosmic Eclipse. Before we get into my top 10 from the set, I am doing a PTCGO giveaway. 2 lucky winners will receive 10 Cosmic Eclipse PTCGO codes. All you have to do is comment and tell me what your 10 favorite cards are from the set, and then make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. I'll randomly select 2 winners that commented on this video what their 10 favorite cards were and that are subscribed to the channel. All you have to do is comment, subscribe, and the 2 winners, I'll ask for their email address, and boom, you won 10 Cosmic Eclipse PTCGO codes. Now, let's get into my top 10. Coming in at number 10 is Red and Blue, one of the new tag team supporters. So Red and Blue is really cool because it gives energy acceleration primarily to evolution Pokemon. So what Red and Blue does is search your deck for a Pokemon GX that evolves from one of your Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. When you play this card, you may discard 2 other cards from your hand. If you do, search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to the Pokemon you evolved in this way. So unlike Welder, unlike Mina, unlike some other energy acceleration supporters we have seen in the past, Red and Blue specifically is taking basic energy cards from the deck and putting them onto a Pokemon that you just evolved. So evolution Pokemon have been pretty underpowered because of all of the tag team GXs with really high damage outputs and really high HP. And I'm hoping Red and Blue can kind of revitalize evolution Pokemon in the current standard meta. Coming in at number 9 is LOPPUNY and JIGGLYPUFF. LOPPUNY and JIGGLYPUFF is a new tag team GX. It's colorless, a little bit on the lower side for HP as far as tag team Pokemon go, but it does a ton of damage with Jumping Balloon. For 3 colorless energy, 60 plus 60 more damage for each of your opponent's GX and EX they have in play. So this includes the active Pokemon and the bench Pokemon. So if they have an active Pikarom and then a bench Pikarom and then a Dedenne on the bench, that's 240 right there. Versus Mewtwo, you need to do a little more damage. Since Mewtwo has higher HP, and versus Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, they have more HP as well. But Jumping Balloon can really do a ton of damage if your opponent carelessly benches more Pokemon GX than they need to, or if their deck just naturally needs a lot of Pokemon GX on the board. The Puffy Smasher's GX attack isn't too great, but it's worth noting. Since we are using this Pokemon for its first attack, we might as well know what the GX attack does at least. So for 1 colorless energy, your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. If this Pokemon has at least 4 extra energy attached to it, this attack does 200 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So it has a sniping capability to the bench, but Jumping Balloon is what we're really looking at here. I do think a lot of people may be overhyping LOPPUNY and JIGGLYPUFF, because you do have to remember, people aren't going to just carelessly dump GXs onto their bench. We're looking at the Mewtwo and the Pikarom decks from this past standard meta that is just ending, and looking at all the GXs on the board, but that's because they were not afraid of LOPPUNY and JIGGLYPUFF. So if anything, this could serve as a check to not just dumping the Dedenne GXs onto the board, but if your opponent does that, then you can punish them with the Jumping Balloon attack. Number 8 is PHIONE, and PHIONE is here for its Whirlpool Suction ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may have your opponent switch their active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. If you do, discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and put it onto the bottom of your deck. So PHIONE, I really like these non-GX ability Pokemon like PHIONE and like Marshadow with the Resetting Hole. Whirlpool Suction serves as like a repel or half of an escape rope, or even like Volcanion Prism's ability, so it forces your opponent to switch their active to the bench. This can be really good if your opponent used Tag Purge and you're attacking with Tag Team Pokemon. You can use Whirlpool Suction to force them to switch it to the bench, and then maybe Great Catcher or use another kind of gust effect to bring that Pokemon back up, removing the effect of Tag Purge. PHIONE can also be used in stall or control decks. If you don't want a deck out, you can just consistently use Whirlpool Suction to put it to the bottom of your deck, so you'll always have something to draw into. As long as you then draw into the PHIONE without it getting milled or anything, and then bench it, and you leave yourself bench room, and your opponent has a bench for you to actually Whirlpool Suction. So this card isn't exactly as flashy as some tag teams, but I do think it can go in a fair amount of decks. It can be useful in several different situations, and that's why it's on my top 10 list. Number 7 is the new Stadium card, Chaotic Swell. I really love this effect that it has. It's unique and it's interactive and it is thought-provoking. So Chaotic Swell, it's kind of simple, but also kind of not. So whenever either player plays a Stadium card from their hand, discard that Stadium card after discarding this one. The new Stadium card has no effect. So Chaotic Swell is kind of a buffer for Stadiums, especially with decks that don't want to see a power plant come down. You can just put Chaotic Swell into your deck. So if a new Stadium comes in to replace Chaotic Swell is replaced, but the new Stadium also gets discarded. And the unwritten rule on Stadium cards is that you can only play one a turn. So your opponent can't just replace it with a power plant and play a new one. They can only play one Stadium for the turn, and it's to replace the Chaotic Swell. So this may force power plant decks to play Marshadow Resetting Hole to reset hole away the Chaotic Swell, then play their power plant, or even play a Faba to get rid of the Chaotic Swell and then play their power plant. But it's a very cool card, and it's either going to change deck building or change games, or potentially a mix of both. Number 6 is SILVALLY-GX. It's a Stage 1 GX Pokemon, 210 HP. It has an ability that draws cards. It has an attack that does 120 damage. It has a GX attack that we're not going to use too much. It sounds a whole lot like Zoroark GX. So Disc Reload, once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. We have a lot of cards in the standard format that can help us empty our hand to draw new ones, even with multiple disc reloads. The new tag team supporters all have secondary effects where you have to discard cards to use the secondary effects. Of course, we also got Great Catcher in this set. We have Mysterious Treasure. Red and blue synergizes very well with Silvally, since you can get the Silvally out, discard 2 cards to attach energy to it, and then refill your hand with the disc reload after using the red and blue. Brave Buddies is kind of underwhelming, but it's nice enough to have on a Pokemon that's also drawing us cards. So Brave Buddies does 50, and if you played a supporter card from your hand this turn, it does 70 more, so that's 120. And then Silver Knight GX, if your opponent's active Pokemon is an Ultra Beast, it is knocked out. So if we come up against an Ultra Beast deck, then that's great. Silver Knight GX seems like a pretty good GX attack to use. But regardless, I think SILVALLY-GX has a great drawing ability. It synergizes well with red and blue and other cards in the set. Brave Buddies for 120 does a solid amount of damage, and you can even use Silvally Memories from past sets to change the type of Silvally to hit for weakness. So yeah, Silvally, draw support Pokemon, decent attacker, Stage 1 Pokemon. It synergizes well with other cards from the set and other cards we have in Standard. That's why it made my top 10 list. Number 5 is Mallow and Lana. This card's pretty crazy in tag team Pokemon-based decks, even in some GX-based decks. As long as you have enough HP to heal, this card's very good. So switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. When you play this card, you may discard 2 other cards from your hand. If you do, heal 120 damage from the Pokemon you move to your bench. So 120 damage is just 10 damage short of healing everything from a Giratina's Shadow Impact. And Mallow and Lana is also acts as a switch at the same time. This isn't only good against Malamar, though. If you're playing against maybe a SILVALLY-GX deck, it's doing 120, and you can just heal all of that with a Mallow and Lana. Anything that's not one-shotting you, Mallow and Lana, is very good versus. I think this is great in Greens decks, but I'm not sure how good Greens decks are at the moment. But regardless, I think this should be going in most tag team-based decks and maybe some other non-tag team GX decks, depending on what kind of GX decks pop up in the meta, but healing 120 and switching is just really, really good in a format where we don't have Max Potion and Acerola. So Mallow and Lana, number 5 on my top 10 list. Number 4 is Arceus and Dialga and Palkia, also known as ADP. This card was overlooked, I think, when we got spoilers for the set, and even when the set was first coming out, I think ADP was really overlooked. But Altered Creation GX is an insane GX attack. So for a Metal Energy, for the rest of the game, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. And if you had at least one extra Water Energy attached, when your Pokemon knocks out your opponent's active Pokemon with damage, take an extra prize card. So you're doing 30 more damage for the rest of the game, and you're taking one more prize card for the rest of the game whenever your damage knocks out the opponent's active Pokemon. So it doesn't stop there. Arceus Dialga Palkia also has 280 HP, and it has the attack Ultimate Ray. Water, Metal, colorless, 150. Search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So Ultimate Ray is like Full Blitz from Pikarom, except it's for any 3 basic energy, and you can attach them however you like. This card has a lot going for it. It synergizes with the supporter Ends Resolve, which discards the top 6 cards of your deck, and then attaches as many basic energy there to one of your bench Dragon Pokemon. So you can Alter Creation turn 1 with that combo if you have like a switch, or tag switch between Arceus Dialga Palkia as if you have 2 out. I think this card's going to be really good. I imagine you'll be seeing YouTube profiles on it, battles, articles. I should have some sort of content up for this deck before LAIC this upcoming weekend. The card's very, very good. That's why it's number 4 on my list. Number 3 is Great Catcher. This set, if you haven't noticed, has a lot of good trainers. Great Catcher is one of them indeed. So to play this card, you have to discard 2 other cards from your hand, and then you can gust up an opponent's benched GX or EX Pokemon. So we've been using custom catchers a lot in standard format, and Great Catcher is in some cases just a better custom catcher since you don't need 2 at the same time. This can just bring up a Dedenne and take an easy 2 prizes, or it can bring up your opponent's important Pokemon and start getting hits on it. Great Catcher is another one of those cards I was mentioning that empties your hand and allows you to draw more with SILVALLY-GX. So there's some nice synergy there. But I do think Great Catcher leaves more deck spots when you're deck building. So now you don't need 4 custom catchers. You can just run like 2 or 3 Great Catchers. And then you have extra deck space for other things that you wanted. Consistency cards or techs. Great Catcher is just super, super powerful. It's not anything too flashy, but I do think it deserves to be number 3 on my top 10 list. Number 2 is Tag Call, another item, another thing that's not too fancy, but I really love Tag Call. I tried to not be biased with this list, and I'm trying to put these cards ranked as I think they will be played, and I do think Tag Call is going to see a ton of play, and I think it's going to be in a ton of successful decks. Tag Call reads, search your deck for up to 2 tag team cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So that's tag team cards. You can get a combination of tag team Pokemon and tag team supporters. There's a lot of good tag team supporters, and there's even some tag team supporters that are mediocre, like Cynthia and Caitlyn, that you can get with Tag Call, which makes them good. This is like a Pokegear, except you're going into your deck and picking that tag team supporter. So in red and blue decks, this is amazing. In tag team Pokemon decks, this is just a better Cherish Ball. If you were only searching out tag teams anyway, now you can get 2. Tag Call is just an insane amount of value for no discarding, no drawback, and it's on an item card. I think this card definitely deserves to be at the top of the list. Before we go to number 1, I wanted to go through just a few honorable mentions. These cards, I don't know how they will pan out, and I'm not sure if they deserve themselves a spot on the top 10 individually. But Oricorio GX has a really interesting ability. Once during your turn before your attack, if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards. So I think that's really cool. At any time during your turn, after you've used your SILVALLY, after you've used supporters, after you've done whatever, you've played the Dene, now you have a hand of 6, as long as Oricorio is on your bench, something was knocked out last turn, you can draw 3 cards. I think that's really, really good, and it is an extra GX on the bench, so like great catchers in this set too, and Mega LOPPUNY's in this set, but I cannot imagine a world where Oricorio GX doesn't find itself in a successful deck at some point. Magneton has the ability Call Signal. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 supporter cards, reveal them, put them into your hand. If you search your deck in this way, this Pokemon is now knocked out. So you can use Call Signal to search for Lieutenant Surge and 2 disruptive supporters, like Lieutenant Surge, Mars and Mars, or Lieutenant Surge, Jesse James, Jesse James. And you're even knocking out the Magneton, giving your opponent a prize card, making Lieutenant Surge work. I think this just has great, it has great ability to be in a control deck, great potential to be in a control deck. I think some Pidgeotto players might be trying this out this weekend at LAIC, or at least a possible inclusion on their mind. End Resolve, this goes really well with Arceus Dialga Palkia. I think a lot of people were thinking it would go well with Reshiram and Zekrom tag team, but I'm not sure that card's all that great. End Resolve in a vacuum right now in standard format I don't think is too good, and if Arceus Dialga Palkia wasn't as good as it is, End Resolve wouldn't even be thought of according to me for this list. Which is why I didn't put it on the list itself. It's being carried by Arceus Dialga Palkia, in my opinion. And then last here for the honorable mentions, I have the Lily's Pokédoll. Play this card as if it were a 30 HP colorless basic Pokemon. At any time during your turn before your attack, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may discard all cards from it and put it at the bottom of your deck. And your opponent does not take a prize card for knocking it out. So there's this Lily's Pokédoll stall deck going around. If you want to see kind of a glimpse of what it looks like, Azul GG on YouTube has a deck profile up for it. We talked about Pokédoll stall a lot actually in my meta discussion, which you can find on my channel. But it hasn't proven itself yet. We don't know if it's actually going to be good or if it's just a gimmick. So I couldn't put it on my preliminary top 10 list before even seeing how it does. I'm not sure it's actually going to get results, but it is a very cool card, and it makes for some pretty cool stall and control strategies, so I did want to mention it. So going on to the number 1 is Belelba and Bryson Man, the tag team supporter. It is a trainer card here at number 1, not a flashy GX Pokemon. So Belelba and Bryson Man simply states discard 3 cards from the top of each player's decks. How could that not be broken? So this card is pretty insane in Pidgeotto control, since you can just mill your opponent 3 cards, 6 cards each turn, even if you play Surge and then 2 Belelba and Bryson Man. You don't mind milling yourself 3 cards because you're just going to go down to a 0 card deck and use resource management anyway. Belelba and Bryson Man could even potentially become a tech versus Pidgeotto to maybe mill them of important cards so they can't get the combo off on you, but usually they'll hand lock you. So we're going into a format that I think is going to kind of revolve around Pidgeotto control because of Belelba and Bryson Man and other tools it has gained and other tools that it's had that are just really, really good. If Pidgeotto control doesn't see a ton of success, I think it's only because players are so prepared for it. Because of the power of this card, Belelba and Bryson Man. So maybe it doesn't see success because players are so prepared, but this card is just very, very good. I can't believe it was printed. We'll also look at the secondary effect, which doesn't matter too much. When you play this card, you may discard 3 other cards from your hand. If you do, each player discards their benched Pokemon until they have 3 benched Pokemon. Your opponent discards first. So that part isn't too important, and maybe if you have too many Pokemon on your bench and Maybe you used your Cold Crush Articuno and you don't need it anymore, so you can discard it to make room for something else you might want. Maybe you didn't get your 4th Pidgeotto down or something like that. But yeah, Belelba and Bryson, man, very, very powerful supporter card. I'm expecting to see this get a lot of play in standard format. So that is the end of my top 10 cards from Cosmic Eclipse video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out flipsidegaming.com. Use code CELIO, all caps, for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. And don't forget to comment and tell me what your top 10 cards from Cosmic Eclipse are. Subscribe to the channel, and you'll be entered to win 10 Cosmic Eclipse PTCGO codes yourself. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.